Two houses, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene.
From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean.
From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their lives.
Whose misadventured peace overthrows, do with their death bury their parents.
The fearful passage of their death marks love, and the continuance of their parents' rage.
Which, but their children's end not could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage.
The which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toils shall strive.
Even though his plays were written years and years, hundreds of years ago, you can still kind of see some of his plays and some of the elements of his plays in even modern shows and movies. For example, West Side Story is a great adaptation of Shakespeare's stories, as well as movies like Twilight and High School Musical. They all bring in elements of Shakespeare.
And I think it's really interesting how different cultures take Shakespeare and then transform them into their own. And I think that's a very fluid aspect of Shakespeare that not a lot of writers enjoy in today's day and age.
So I think we still read Shakespeare today because the themes and emotions that Shakespeare is able to present in a play are something that transgress not only cultural lines but period lines, and it's something that we can relate to any part of our lives.
My favorite thing about Shakespeare must be the fact that he has multiple dimensions. And by that, I mean that Shakespeare was not only a playwright, but he was also a phenomenal businessman. Which is why I still think Shakespeare is important today, because many of his economic references in his writings still apply to the economic policies.
I think by talking about emotion, you see everything you see on the streets and everything happening. I feel like there is something that Shakespeare has said in his play which we still are doing today, and which we still go through today. So loss of a loved one and being in fights. I think by reading Shakespeare, and because his lines and everything is so profound and long, he really gets to the core of problems and tries to solve them within those plays. And I think that's what we as humans are doing every day, which is also probably why we still read it. It's something we can relate to, and by reading Shakespeare, we kind of learn how to solve our own problems.
Romeo and Juliet is about two lovers who are destined to not love each other. They found the one person that they're supposed to hate, and they wind up falling in love with them. And I think what's special about Romeo and Juliet is the fact that they know right away that they're destined to love each other, even though they're supposed to hate each other. And instead of giving in to the hate they're supposed to have, they let their own emotions push them past their parents' feelings.
It speaks to a larger theme in terms of class structure and the hierarchy of society, which I think is often overlooked in today's society, because everyone's like, oh, Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers, and that's what's the theme that permeates the whole story. But if you look at it, actually it's a very interesting discussion of how different classes do influence the way that people interact.
But they fall in love in like 3 minutes, so the love is very spontaneous, and I think that's what what a lot of discussions are about, whether it's lust or love between the two. And after finding out they kind of can't, they both die. So there's a lot happening in very little time.
What's so special about Romeo and Juliet is that it's more than just love. It translates to the entire idea of the feud, you know, and how important it is to set aside our differences for the sake of love.
I think one theme about Romeo and Juliet is like you need to love and tolerate instead of hate each other constantly. That's actually applicable to a lot of warfares or political struggles among countries. So like another universal value that we need to learn from Shakespeare.